Well, good morning, everyone. I hope everyone had a restful, long weekend, and welcome to the Chamber's Government Affairs Forum featuring Massachusetts State Treasurer Deborah B. Goldberg, CEO of the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you all to our Government Affairs Forum, which connects the business community with leading officials in our state and local government. Today, our featured guest, State Treasurer and Receiver General Goldberg, will hear her vision for driving meaningful impact through her office. Before we begin, I want to highlight a few upcoming Chamber events. Starting with on October 30th, the Chamber will be launching a new series that will run throughout 2025 under our public policy priority that we've branded Transportation First. We'll feature Secretary of Transportation Monica Tibbetts-Nutt and MBTA General Manager Phil Ng, who will address the business community on their thoughts of the state of our transportation network system-wide. You don't want to miss this important discussion about the future of transportation and mobility in the Commonwealth, and as I said, we'll continue this series throughout 2025 with a deeper dive on different modes like the airport, commuter rail, rapid transit, traffic in downtown and the city. So stay tuned for announcements about that series. On November 14th, a week after the national election, we will host our annual Economic Outlook event featuring the president of Babson College, Dr. Stephen Spinelli Jr. Some of you may have read that Babson College was recently designated as the second best college in America. So congratulations to Babson and President Spinelli. We'll also have the Executive Vice President of the Boston Fed, Egon Zach-Rajesk, who is an economist and will give a perspective of the Boston Fed on the current economy and what we can look forward to in 2025. This event is sponsored by M&T Bank, so of course, President of M&T Bank, Grace Lee, will be joining us. Grace is here today. Grace, thank you for that. As well as the CEO of Mass Challenge, Caitlin Meemers-Broom, who will talk about the impact of current economic conditions on our startup economy. So mark the date, November 14th, for our annual Economic Outlook event. And on November 18th, we'll feature Congressman Stephen Lynch, a friend and my congressman, actually. Interesting, about 10 days, a little more after the national election, we'll have Congressman Lynch, who I'm sure will reflect on the results of that election, along with sharing his legislative priorities and outlook for what will happen in Washington as we move forward. And of course, you can find out more about these events at bostonchamber.com. We're almost ready to welcome the State Treasurer to the podium, but I want to thank a few partners. First, I want to thank our longtime sponsor of the Government Affairs Forum, Bank of America. And Bank of America has done so much in our community. But today, in addition to sponsoring this event, I want to thank Bank of America for actually hosting us in their downtown space, this beautiful space. So thank you to the team for that. And with that, I'm pleased to turn it over to Maurice Coleman, Tax Credit Syndication and Investment Executive at Bank of America, to introduce our Massachusetts State Treasurer, Deb Goldberg. Maurice.
Good morning. Oh, we could do better than that. I know it's a long weekend. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you all for being here. There you go. Thank you all for being here. And again, I am Maurice Coleman, Market Executive in Global Commercial Banking, Commercial Real Estate here at Bank of America. First and foremost, I want to say it's such a pleasure to be with all of you this morning. I'll be remiss if I didn't give thanks to our longstanding partner, Jim and the Chamber of Commerce, for allowing us to be a partner with the Government Affairs Forum. So if we could just give them a big round of applause. President John F. Kennedy is credited with saying that people are not excellent because they achieve great things, but they achieve great things because they choose to be excellent. Well, today I'm truly honored to celebrate and to welcome our speaker today, a woman who has chosen to be excellent throughout her entire life. Our Massachusetts State Treasurer and Receiver in General, Deborah B. Goldberg. Treasurer Goldberg is responsible, as many of us know, for the state's lottery, which generates over $1 billion in revenue that benefits the Commonwealth. And if you don't have a ticket, I please say go out and get one, because everything that she does makes a contribution to our incredible Commonwealth. She is also responsible for the state's cash and debt management, unclaimed property, as well as she chairs the state boards and commissions. Since 2015, the state treasurer established the Office of Economic Empowerment, the first of its kind in this country, in which she chairs the Economic Empowerment Trust Fund. She is a bad person, ladies and gentlemen, and we are thrilled to have her here with us today. You see, when I think of the treasurer and I think of her ability to drive innovation, to drive creative thinking, to bring discipline to our management of this particular Commonwealth, and her unwavering commitment. Donna just brought me my glasses. Thank you, Donna. And her unwavering commitment to making sure that our state, the best state in this country, is fiscally secure. I have nothing but deep admiration for our state treasurer. Deborah, thank you for all you do. We are thrilled to have you. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for just being a remarkable human being. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for our state treasurer.
Now you can read the real introduction. Now that you've got your glasses.
There you go. Thank you for being here.
Oh, he said I've been this way my whole life. I don't know. I would ask my parents if that were the case. My teenage years just maybe weren't quite the way you described them. Good morning, everyone. And it's always a pleasure to be here and have Maurice introduce me that way to at least make me laugh a little. As treasurer, it is my mission to promote economic stability, security, and opportunity for everyone here in Massachusetts, regardless of their background. These are the guiding principles that drive every action we take, and I mean our whole team, not just me, as we continue to invest in our people, communities, and small businesses. Building toward an economy that works for everyone is critically important to all of us. First, right off the bat, I have to talk about our rainy day fund. That's been a pet issue for me long before I became treasurer. Who in Brookline, at Brookline Town Meeting, starts a meeting with saying we don't do anything that negatively impacts the rainy day fund? It's unheard of. It only happened while I was there. It hasn't happened since. So I've always been adamant about building up and maintaining our reserves to position the Commonwealth to be financially secure, no matter what the future brings. So when I arrived in January 2015, it was at a woefully low level of $1.2 billion. Today, after the final fiscal year supplemental budget filed by Governor Healy passes, and $265 million in excess capital gains goes towards the transitional escrow fund, another $265 million will be deposited into the stabilization fund that will push the balance to right around $9 billion. The Pension Reserves Investment Management Board, PRIM, has constructed a portfolio that consistently performs well while looking towards the future. Last year, I announced that we were in the process of implementing a new committee to help oversee sustainable investing and improve our ability to deliver long-term returns for beneficiaries. Today, I have with me, smiling over there, Vina Ramani, Prim's Director of Stewardship. Give us a little wave, Vina. She's hiding in the corner because I previewed for her that I was going to call her out. Vina has led Prim in ensuring our Stewardship and Sustainability Committee is fully operational, and it has already made strides towards assessing how the fund is best positioned to address material, environmental, and social factors that affect fund performance. The committee has engaged in a research-based, data-driven, and I'm underlining those words, approach to identify stewardship priorities. These priorities, which include climate transition planning, fair pay, sustainable forestry, and transparency, are areas of high potential for risk mitigation and value creation within the PRIT Fund. I think you only have to look at Florida for the last 2 weeks to see that this is the real deal. By using a systematic materiality-based process, Mass Prim is pioneering an approach to stewardship that is forward-looking and innovative, while remaining solidly anchored to our fiduciary duty to ensure the long-term value of the fund. This work positions Prim as an industry leader as we continue to generate steady returns. In fact, I get calls all too frequently, will we come to New York and give the presentations to groups over and over again about how we're going about this. The PRIT Fund ended fiscal year 24 with a record balance of $105.3 billion for the fiscal year, surpassing the previous record of $96.6 billion set in fiscal year 2023. The Clean Water Trust continues to be a successful fund that provides money to municipalities for safe water infrastructure, and it also generates local economic activity. Just last week, President Biden announced a plan with the EPA to remove all lead service lines in the country within 10 years. For several years, the trust itself has had programs targeted at removing lead from drinking water. The first, which began in January 2020, is the School Water Improvement Grant Program. Now, if you can't remember that name, we call it SWIG. That you can remember. SWIG provides schools that have identified lead and copper with grant funding to purchase and install water bottle filling stations. It has provided $1.9 million to replace 622 fixtures in 626 schools, serving an estimated 177,000 children. I think that is an amazing statistic, and it's not something people think about. Whenever I talk about Clean Water Trust, I say to people, think about this. You don't see it. The pipes are in the walls or under the ground, but think about the public health involved in this kind of work and the ability to make a difference in all the local communities. Also, the Biden infrastructure bill provided funding for our second program that gives grants to cities and towns to identify any lead service lines in its service area, public or private, and gives them the opportunity to develop a plan to remove them. Since inception in June 2022, the Trust has approved 149 grants to communities for a total of $36 million. These two projects are merely the first steps in removing all lead service lines from our drinking water systems. And very importantly, the Trust has financed $31 million in 0% interest lead service line removal projects in 5 communities. While still ongoing, so far, 215 lead service lines have been removed from use. Massachusetts Massachusetts has more to do, but we are making a lot of progress and we're committing to achieving the goal of zero lead lines in Massachusetts. We are also prioritizing our investing in small businesses across the state through our Invest MA program. Creating and supporting a strong small business sector, including a robust banking sector, is critical to providing economic stability in Massachusetts. I don't have to tell all of you, but it bears repeating. Because people focus so much on large businesses, but small businesses and sole proprietorships make up 85% of businesses in our Commonwealth. And historically, about 2/3 of the new jobs created in the United States each year. The Investing for the Long-Term initiative, Invest MA, intends to promote the success of small businesses by boosting loans to them through increased deposits that add capital to a bank. We created Invest MA to shift state cash deposits under the control of the treasurer to Massachusetts banks that are willing to expand their small business lending. Participating banks have now received a total of $420 million and builds on my office's progress towards supporting small businesses and entrepreneurs. This program syncs very nicely with our small business initiative that I shared with you last year. So just a little reminder of what that is, because I'm not going to test you on it. Our small business initiative, SBI, is an online statewide toolkit on how to plan, maintain, and grow a successful small business for budding entrepreneurs all over the state. In addition, we created the Small Business Empowerment Series, which last year, to sync in with the online program, which last year served 81 business owners. Building on that success, this past spring we continued the program and reached an additional 39 business owners in the state. The Small Business Empowerment Series includes free workshops that equip entrepreneurs with the knowledge and skills necessary to create a strategy, implement successful planning, and make wise financial choices. By providing this kind of support from the beginning, we hope to ensure greater success for entrepreneurs, positively impacting local communities and the state's overall economy. I kind of look at it as our own little mini incubator system. And that's the way to have successful small businesses that grow into larger ones and employ lots of people. Now, everyone's favorite topic, lottery. I don't know why, wherever I go, that's always like high on the list, and sure enough, we had a ticket shown to you. So we can arrange to show you where the closest spot is to pick those up. I know the big news is that iLottery has been approved and on its way. My team at the Massachusetts State Lottery has always done a great job of making do with very few resources that they've been given. But with increased competition, they have constantly been trying to stay ahead of the curve, first with casinos, then sports betting, and we were beginning to see how we could easily fall behind. iLottery will help ensure that the lottery can continue to compete in an increasingly saturated market. And I want to remind everybody, the lottery may be a business and it's a big operating company, but 100% of its profits go back to the state. And I don't mean some vague thought of what the state is. I mean the people. The people all over the state benefit from the profits of the lottery. So with the iLottery, in its first full year of operation, Massachusetts can expect over $70 million in net profit from online sales. That number quickly scales to over $180 million by year 3, over $230 million in year 5, and almost $360 million in year 10. These dollars will go toward funding childcare initiatives aiming to improve affordability and accessibility. I do not need to tell you how critical affordable childcare is to filling job openings, let alone growing the workforce. A 2023 publication by the Mass Taxpayers Foundation found that the scarcity of childcare facilities and qualified workers to staff them is costing Massachusetts families $1.7 billion a year in lost wages due to missing work or reduced work hours. And employers are losing $812 million a year in low productivity and employee turnover because workers simply cannot find adequate childcare, according to the foundation. I don't need the foundation to tell me that. I bet everyone in this room has heard about it, seen it, experienced it. Critical to our having a thriving economy is to be able to support families in how we address the child care needs. iLottery's profits will go towards addressing this challenge. Additionally, it will realize increased profits for our over 7,000 retail partners. In every other state, in-person sales increased at a greater rate after lotteries went online. That may sound like not possible to you, but it is, because a new platform will give us the ability to drive customers into stores in a way we simply cannot do now. In fiscal year 2024, retailers earned a record $350 million in commissions and bonuses. That averages over $45,000 per retailer. iLottery will increase these numbers. The Massachusetts School Building Authority, MSBA, you know we have a lot of acronyms in the Treasurer's Office. In fact, I have to tell you, when I first arrived and they were throwing them all at me, I went, no, say it. Say it. Until I learn your language, you have to say it. Now I'm guilty of the same thing. MSBA is another agency that works directly with communities to support children and families. Since its inception in 2004, the authority has approved 1,046 projects and has made over $17.4 billion in reimbursements for school construction projects across the Commonwealth. In recognition of increasing costs, the MSBA board voted to provide an additional $178 million combined with one-time funding of $100 million included in the fiscal year state budget for $278 million in supplemental grants. COVID costs and inflation really had harmed a lot of districts during this time frame. The good news is we're starting to see pricing come down. The 200, I already said that right off the top of my head. I need to read it from the speech. The MSBA has also been able to increase its project funding limits. Late last year, the board voted to increase the construction funding limit by 40% to $605 per square foot. These changes will allow us to continue to address the growing demand for school building assistance. Now we start getting into things that I'm going to ask your help for. And the first one is our core plan. Everyone in this room knows, absolutely knows, we have a retirement crisis. Despite trends towards auto IRA plans, experts are beginning to acknowledge that our Massachusetts multi-employer core plan is conceivably the better choice for nonprofits and small businesses. The core plan was launched in 2017. I see David Lynch, who works with me on that, nodding. He doesn't like me to acknowledge him, but boy, is he a star. You all are stars, by the way, for those who work with me. But boy, Dave has had to really battle on this plan. It was launched in 2017 with a simple mission: to help Massachusetts nonprofit employees save and invest for a financially secure retirement by providing a tax-deferred and post-tax 401k savings plan for eligible organizations that choose to adopt it. Too many Americans are not saving enough for retirement, partly due, and truthfully a large part due to the lack of adequate retirement plans offered by employers. In fact, nearly half of small businesses with under 100 employees have no workplace retirement plan at all. This alarming trend impacts all sectors. However, nonprofits face unique challenges such as high costs, regulatory complexity, fiduciary liability, and administrative burden. And by the way, nonprofits have an enormous amount of employees here in Massachusetts. It is a very large sector here. CORE addresses these barriers by offering a simple, low-cost, and convenient option for nonprofit employers and employees, and offers a comprehensive benefit plan which helps small nonprofit employers recruit and retain talent. Faced with fierce competition by the private sector for the same talent pool, having an employer-offered retirement plan helps make small nonprofits more desirable places to work. Our goal is to increase the availability of the plan to more nonprofits. It is currently capped by statute at nonprofit organizations with 20 employees or less. So in other words, if you are running a nonprofit with 21 people, you can't have this plan. Doesn't that seem kind of silly?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
See, I told you, this is the class participation. Expanding the eligibility cap to 100 employees would provide them with the opportunity to save for their futures. We will continue to work with the legislature this session to get this over the finish line. Yes, it is in the legislature. Yes, it is important. Yes, it helps all of you in this room because it also helps our economy. And we want to be able to provide better retirement savings opportunity for people in the nonprofit sector who do such great work. Baby bonds. Last year, Jim, you called me the children's treasurer. Do you remember that? So let me give you an update on baby bonds. Based off recommendations and findings in our 2022 task force, we partnered with legislative champions to file a Massachusetts baby bonds bill. We envision this program to consist of government-sponsored trust funds created for eligible children at birth. Once these kids reach adulthood, they can access the funds for asset-building investments like attending post-secondary education, buying a home, starting a business, or saving for retirement. Since we last spoke, baby bonds has continued to gain momentum across the country. Congress has taken steps towards passing legislation at the federal level. Of course, we won't wait for them to do it. It's better if we do it here. At the state level, in July 2021, there were 7 states that had passed, proposed, or were considering legislation, and by September 2024, that number has jumped to 20, including Massachusetts. Connecticut and DC have legislation, and Georgia, along with 6 others, are constructing pilot programs. We anticipate 6 more states will file baby bonds legislation in the upcoming year, positioning Massachusetts to be a positive example of how we can help young people toward asset building activities that contribute, again, positively to our economy. So in other words, there's a theme here. The work that we do in the Treasurer's office is focused on what are the small things and the large things that we can do that builds economic stability and economic growth in this state. Now, not to be confused with baby bonds, is our Baby Steps savings plan, which for those of you who recall, is our seeded savings accounts to prepare for children's future post-secondary education. So in case you know somebody who's expecting a baby soon, or has a baby that's a month or two old, but they didn't clearly read the birth certificate forms because they had been a little busy in the prior 24 hours, they need to check off the box and sign up. Through public-private partnerships and our 501c3 trust fund, we will deposit $50 into any U Fund 529 savings account open for Massachusetts babies before they turn 1. Since its inception in 2020, and I need to remind you all, because I'm sure you've forgotten, that 2020 was about probably the worst year you could kick off a program, particularly one where you needed to work with people in front of them. We are very happy to be able to say our plan actually was hugely successful that year and has continued to grow year after year. To date, there have been just about, give or take 1 or 2, because it changes daily, 41,486 accounts opened and funded. That means 41,486 families opening these accounts for these babies. It's about a $2 million investment thanks to our public-private partnerships. Just this year, between January and July, there have been over 6,400 Baby Steps accounts funded. This is 26% more accounts than in the same time last year. Baby Steps is a direct result of a successful public-private partnership. We are thrilled to have terrific private sector partners financially support the program's funding. And we are always looking for more. Again, another class participation part of my speech. Any help you can be sending folks our way is an investment in Massachusetts' future. Why? Because our studies that we did through Mass School Building Authority have shown to be able to have an economically stable future in Massachusetts, you must have some form of post-secondary education, whether it's vocational and technical training, or community college, or college. It's a necessity for our high-cost state. And so this is a direct connection because we want kids to have the resources they need to attend school without assuming too much debt and not being able to finish. A key success factor of Baby Steps to accomplish that goal is it gives us access to the children and their families to combine capital with wraparound services such as financial education, which gives the kids and their families the skills they need to make informed and responsible decisions about their money, future, and opportunities. So speaking of financial education, again, this is your assignment. Financial education provides the foundation for which people can prepare for their future and navigate the complex economic world. In fact, those of you in the room who come from the banking world, so often, and you'll agree, you have people coming in seeking help, and they have no understanding whatsoever as to what they are dealing with. Since I last spoke to you, 3 additional states now require a semester-long financial education course, bringing the number in our country to 26. Included are neighboring states Connecticut, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire. Unfortunately, Massachusetts is not one of them, and we continue to fall behind. Ready for this statistic? In the Center for Financial Literacy at Champlain College, Vermont's report card, Massachusetts was one of only 5 states in the country to receive an F, for having virtually no financial education requirements. I don't know, I don't think that's something that we would want to publicize about why come to Massachusetts. 7 states got an A for requiring students to take a semester-long personal finance course in high school. And guess who they are? Alabama, Iowa, Mississippi, Missouri, Tennessee, Utah, and Virginia. And others are online to be doing it in the next 2 to 3 years. In fact, we saw a recent statistic that made it appear that by 2027, Massachusetts might be the only state that doesn't have this requirement if we don't get moving. Our office works towards helping fill the gap through our public-private partnerships. My team at the Office of Economic Empowerment, and I see Elena right over there smiling at me as I go through all this, offers resources and programs like Worth and Wealth seminars. We've issued 315 grants for Credit for Life fairs. Anyone in the room ever gone to a Credit for Life fair? Hands, hands, hands. You haven't lived till you've attended a Credit for Life fair. Somehow get the names of everyone, Jim. If nothing else, you have to go to one, and then you can tell everyone about it. It's basically the day in a life. And we do it with high school students. And they're given a name, a job, and a salary. And then they go out and they live. 95% of them are bankrupt by noontime. And are at, I'm not kidding, and they're at the credit counselors. The timing is ideal because it's as they are applying to colleges and getting those letters as to what kind of support they'll get or not. And rather than assuming debt, we want to prepare them for what that means. We also have Operation Moneywise for service members and veterans, and workshops for seniors on frauds and scams. We continue to make financial education a legislative priority because when people have the tools to make smart financial choices, it positively impacts the economy for everyone. We would love the business community to help push for this legislative effort. And just in case somebody tries to say to you, well, how are you going to pay for it? Read the bill. We actually have a proposal on how to financially support this initiative. ABCC, those are the folks over there. Watch out for them. The Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission is always ready, willing, and able to help our small businesses and promote local economic development. Their work with communities and industry stakeholders is especially important as the City of Boston prepares to distribute 225 new liquor licenses. To understand the vast reach of this legislation, the bill authorizes the city to distribute a set number of licenses annually across 13 different neighborhoods that have been previously passed over or priced out of this process. In addition, the bill creates 15 non-transferable licenses for community spaces, small theaters, and nonprofits. And let me be clear, these are not just 225 new licenses, these are new businesses that Boston is gaining as a result. In fact, later today, the ABCC will be hosting a webinar with the Massachusetts Restaurant Association and the City of Boston Licensing Board focused on the liquor license application process in Boston. This support is especially crucial as new licensees enter an industry that is increasingly unstable and volatile. And the ABCC has the infrastructure in place to be ready to assist and provide guidance to new licensees in successfully navigating the rules and regulations of the industry. Since last year, the ABCC has continued to expand their outreach licensing compliance training programs. In other words, to translate that into English is to teach people how they can avoid having problems and potentially violating the law. And we have special events to support people of color and those from low-income communities, showing them how to open and manage successfully in this type of regulated environment. Over 2023 and 2024, the ABCC has conducted 41 compliance seminars to assist alcoholic beverage stakeholders with recent statewide compliance issues and best practices. In other words, we're really invested in people's success. During these seminars and municipality trainings, approximately 2,534 alcoholic beverage stakeholders participated, and 25 municipalities were visited. So this should give you a little flavor of what keeps us busy. And by the way, there is more, but I figured you don't want to hear me read a speech for another 15, 20 minutes. So we'll save some things for Jim. In conclusion though, I want to recognize the active role that all of you play as business leaders. And you support our work and help move the needle forward in an economy that would hopefully work for everyone. That's our goal. I know that's your goal. Your support is crucial to ensure that Massachusetts, and especially the Boston area, is a great place to live, work, and to do business. And I look forward to building more progress together so we have a more prosperous Massachusetts for now and into the future. Thank you. Which one do you want me in? Do you have a favorite seat, Jim?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No favorite seats.
No favorite seats.
No, I think we have to, these on?
Nope, not yet. But we know how to do that, don't
Yeah,
we?
we can figure it out.
Oh, wait a minute,
No,
mine's.
wait, maybe-
Hello? No.
Hello, are we on? Yeah.
Hello, now we're on.
You just spoke for a few minutes, so let me get some more.
Is that one for me?
Oh, cool.
I usually drink straight from the bottle.
All right, so, while we're getting settled, look at this. Look at all those notes I took.
Uh-oh.
These were supposed to be questions, instead I have notes. So first, let me begin by more appropriately acknowledging some of the success stories, record balance and the fiscal oversight of PRIM, Clean Water Trust, work that you've done, and so many other things you highlighted in your remarks. So let's give the treasurer and her team a round of applause for why don't we get everyone's favorite subject out of the way quickly and maybe do a follow-up on the online lottery in particular. I was going to ask about impact on sort of the local variety stores, but you took care of that. What's the schedule? When can I download the app and start buying my lottery?
Well, you just put Mark Bracken into a sweat with that question.
Yeah.
So initially we were feeling it was going to be about 16 months. And it's probably going to take a little bit longer because first of all, just for anyone in the room who thinks they can run over and find Mark Bracken, we're in a blackout. And we have been from the beginning. And so our noses are to the grindstone. We're trying to identify the right people through the RFP process to plan, address, and get it online. Because once we go online, we want it perfect. And in fact, we've had tremendous success under Mark Bracken, for example, when he was at Unclaimed Property, with going immediately into the cloud with our Unclaimed Property division, so that when the pandemic started, we were already in the cloud and rocking and rolling. So that when people were stuck at home, we processed more claims then than you could imagine. And it was money in people's pockets if they needed it that time. So I would say, Mark, longer than 16 months, but less than,
April of 26.
please, from your lips,
April of 26.
April of 26.
April of 26, you heard it here, folks.
I'll be back next
Be
year to
back
tell
next
you
year
whether
with
that's
another
fully
visit.
accurate. It better be, Mark.
All right. Well, I remember last year talking about this and some of the third parties that were on the radio trying to get people to buy through them, but none of the money came back to Massachusetts, of course.
Well, what's interesting is we've been asked by many people about Lotto, Jackpocket.
Yeah.
They are customers of ours. So when they purchase Mass State Lottery tickets, they're literally a partner of ours, and those are our tickets being
Okay.
sold. So it does generate volume and profit.
Okay. You raised the rainy day fund,
Mm-hmm.
$9 billion.
Not too shabby.
Not too shabby, I think. It's the highest. Is it the
Yeah.
highest? in the
Yes,
country?
it is.
Highest
No,
in the
not highest in the country,
No.
but we're right up there.
Okay. Way above anything anyone ever expected.
It makes me so happy.
So 2 questions related to that. What's the impact of having such a robust, healthy rainy day fund on state's budgetary and borrowing positions to have that as you talk to rating agencies and so forth? And the second question is, you know, we all put money in reserves for different reasons, whether we're at home or a business or so forth. What is rain in this case? I mean, when is it appropriate to say, you know what, it's time to dip into that?
So, first of all, it has significant impact on the rating agencies. So much so that in 2017, Standard & Poor's downgraded Massachusetts for the lack of transferring the excess capital gains, which is in our statute. When we got upgraded back around, I think the year was 2000 initially, 2003-04, Jim McDonald, give or take. Let's put it this way, I was still in the town of Brookline then. Talking about the rainy day fund, by the way. There was this, in the statute, it said all excess capital gains goes to the rainy day fund to build the rainy day fund. The rating agencies like that. And so what had happened over time is the rainy day fund was getting spent down. And they were repeating it over and over because there are other issues that come into play. We are a high debt state because we carry the debt for all the cities, towns, counties, you name it. Places like Florida throw it off onto their counties, and we have explained this to the rating agencies that we carry everybody's debt. So when you look at the different formulas of what impacts the ratings, having the rainy day fund decline to the degree it did was a big black mark on Massachusetts. And finally in 2017, they said, okay, and they slapped Massachusetts on the wrist. We worked very, very hard to rebuild it. And in fact, we saw the benefits of that during COVID. That year, I happened to be president of the National Association of State Treasurers. We were in a very fiscally strong position to get through the pandemic. We had weekly meetings with all of the different states, including Puerto Rico and other areas that come under the United States, and meetings with the federal treasury, who created a facility, a money facility for some states to be able to borrow money or access cash. Massachusetts didn't have to do that. And we were, and chairs of Ways and Means would say to me, does this qualify as raining? And I said, yes, this qualifies as raining if we need to touch it. Turned out we didn't need to touch it. And that's because of our fiscal discipline. And one of the things that fiscal discipline does is it allows you to run your business well because you have the resources, and the pandemic was a perfect example of it, to be able to address economic need. And so I'm a firm believer that you keep your costs as low as possible. Your bond rating goes down, your costs go up. And you're not as attractive out in the market. So those are all really good reasons to maintain the rainy day fund.
So speaking of the market, interest rates went down. Do you expect increased borrowing activity, refinancing over the next year?
Well, we have to get through a certain event that's happening in early November called an election. And I think that it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, I heard a rumor last week that there might be a shadow Fed chair, which I think is a terrible idea. What I heard is that should one individual win for the presidency, that even though Jerome Powell, who, I'm gonna tell you something, Jerome Powell has done an outstanding job. And we, under most circumstances, would have had a recession. No doubt about it. And the approach, even though it's been painful, has not been a recession. But the idea of having a shadow Fed chair will throw such chaos and disruption into the markets, it would be unbelievable. And so that idea, and I'm actually going to be writing an op-ed piece on this with the Treasurer of Illinois coming up in the next week about why this is bad for everybody. And so I think that we need to get through November. We have to see what actually happens. I mean, this talk of tariffs is not going to help inflation at all. But if we can stay the course and continue on what we've been doing, we've had a soft landing. We really have. Rates are coming down. You know, I was in Chicago a couple of weeks ago, and Aaron Goolsby spoke to the group, and they said, public perception is always a year or two behind what's actually going on. We are headed in the right direction. I firmly believe that. However, the election can disrupt that.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about.
Oh, by the way, Aaron Goolsby is the Fed chair in Chicago.
I want to talk about bond bill authorizations and capacity. So you've got the housing bond bill, you've got a pending economic development bill with tremendous amounts of authorization. Oh, am I off?
Now
Can you
you're
hear me
better.
now? Okay.
Yeah, I could hear you, but
Thank
I
you.
thought they might want to,
Okay.
or maybe they don't want to hear the question.
Significant authorization in the economic development bill. We haven't even talked about a transportation bond bill yet. As you think about all of the, that's different from actual capacity and issuance. So as you think about that, how involved is the Treasurer's Office in sort of mapping out a capacity to actually issue all the debt that is authorized in these bond bills?
So
And can we do that?
lots of authorizations go through that don't get funded, you know
I
that.
know that now.
And we
I've
do
written-
have a
I've
bond.
written some of them.
And you know there's a bond cap, which is increased, it's 105%, but over the prior fiscal year. So you can only do so much. Right now, I'd say this year we've only issued, give or take, around 700 million. However, we are at about 2.8, 2.9, and the bond cap is at about 3.1. So it's really administration and finance and the legislature who make those determinations. And we work with them on the timing, on the info statements, on the approach, but we don't make those decisions on what moves forward. If that's a simple answer to a very lengthy, complicated question.
Okay.
And I think you know that.
Yes, it is. It is a very complex question, but you're right. There's tremendous authorization authority in play right now with tremendous needs in each of those.
I don't disagree.
That said, you mentioned rating agencies. As you think about managing the state's credit and credit ratings, what are the things at the top of your list in terms of concerns that we just have to keep our eye on as relates to, you mentioned pension liabilities, we've already a high debt state, we've got serious needs. How do we balance all that?
Well, long term, I really feel that we have to have a proactive approach in the kind of investments we make that will effectively impact economic growth. And some of them I mentioned today. It may not address immediate need. For example, I can't overemphasize the combination of financial education and getting kids educated to fill our workforce. You're a business chamber. What is one of the number one things you're hearing about from businesses? They can't fill the jobs. They can't fill the jobs, which means they can't drive their own profits. Everything that creates a profit for Massachusetts businesses is good for the Massachusetts economy, which means it's good for revenues incoming to state government to address needs. I know I've said this over and over, but this is my brain. I'm a grocer. I have a cash register. I need the money to come in order for me to pay the bills. This is how I got through financial accounting at Harvard Business School. They tried to make it complicated. I go, I'm a grocer. I've got a building, it gets old, it needs to be fixed. I've got a cash register, the money comes in, I pay the bills, I send the profits out to do other things. I mean, it's very straightforward. And so the kind of things we talk about in the treasurer's office is how do we save the taxpayers' money? So for example, we get the best deals you can possibly get when we do a bond issuance. I don't know if I saw our karate expert here today. She couldn't make it, but that's who goes down to Wall Street and beats Bank of America up, for example. But we save hundreds of millions of dollars, which then can go back to addressing needs. We make money. I talked about the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission. Not only do they generate revenue for the state, but the reason for having these compliance seminars, for working with the local communities, is it drives local business. It's all very simple, if you think about it in the way I do. And so that's sort of how I look at life and the kind of investments we need to make for long term. Now, you didn't ask about long term, you asked about short term. It's very important that we as a state stick with the financial and fiscal plans that we've had in place now since going back to the early 2000s. That's what makes us be able to ride through a pandemic. If you start playing around with things and spread yourselves thin, then ultimately it's going to negatively impact. You have to prioritize. It's not easy when every single need is critical. And I think you also have to prioritize on the things that will support the most amount of people in the long run to be able to be financially successful on their own that then supports the state.
Great. First, thank you for the partnership with the Chamber and the banking community on working with the Boston Public School System on the issue of financial literacy and education. We appreciate that. But I did have a question ready. You answered it in part, but about legislative priorities going into next year. You mentioned the core plan, you mentioned financial education. Anything you want to add to legislative priorities beyond that?
Well, iLottery was a big one.
I know.
That one was a long haul. The core plan is absolutely so important. I mean, there are about 760,000 people in the nonprofit sector in Massachusetts. When I said there were a lot, I didn't mean 50,000. I meant $750,000. And to be able to address their retirement needs. Again, if older people aren't able to take care of themselves, it's a cost to the state. Again, it's a proactive approach, like just about everything I do. So I can't overemphasize getting that cap lifted off. 20 people, come on. 21 is a no-go? How illogical is that? Seriously.
No, I didn't know that, so.
So now you know, and now we can do something about it.
And all the assignments you gave too.
Yes, but truthfully, financial education is such a no-brainer. And I mean, there's so many things. The reason why we structured it the way we did was so that it wasn't an unfunded mandate to local communities. I understand that position. I was there. I was so not happy with the state when we got unfunded mandates. I just substituted a word there, so you know.
Okay.
And so we are providing the funding and the teacher training framework, which is the other thing that many teachers don't have financial understanding. So I would say those two are pretty critical moving forward, and they've been hard to, I got one word. I would like to have automatic enrollment for state employees in our statewide retirement plan. They can opt out. We're not making them retire at the savings to retire for their retirement savings. However, when people have to opt out, they actually stop and think about it. And so that's one more I mean, I've got a list of like 5 pages of priorities, but I don't want to give you too much homework.
No, but we should have conversations about some of these because I think we're aligned.
I know we're aligned.
So I'm going to amend my branding of Treasurer Goldberg to include the Treasurer of Fiscal Discipline, the Treasurer of Financial Literacy, but I'm doubling down on my children's treasurer. Look at this. Childcare and the lottery, you talked about baby bonds and baby steps, school building work, lead pipes and the SWEET program.
Well, you don't want to drink lead either, Jim.
No, I don't want to, but I'm doubling down on my branding as the children's treasurer, given all of the focus areas that you've worked on. And we're grateful for that, by the way. Please join me in thanking Treasurer.